I'm gonna be watching Hassan's video on Joe Rogan endorsing Nick Fuentes for president, and I'm not gonna lie, I had some thoughts on what is going on and what Hassan was talking about, so I decided to make some video run on. Hassan basically said that like we can use his content or whatever, so I might as well use it. I'm not gonna do it often. I'm not gonna use like Hassan's like analysis that often, but he's very smart. He's a lot more experienced. He's a lot older. He's a lot wiser. He's been so like he's obviously very good. Uh, he has a lot of good thoughts and stuff like that, and attributes that I could learn from. So might as well watch some of
Gillis
his
did a
stuff.
pod, and in the podcast, Shane Gillis, I think, jokingly refers to Nick Fuentes as the next president, and Joe Rogan, not so jokingly, jumps on the statement as a great idea. Gillis
Yeah,
gives a
Kaya back
shocking
there.
example as a joke. Rogan takes it completely sincerely and goes on a diatribe about groyperism, and the internet comes away thinking that Shane is a Christian nationalist. This is a perfect distillation of Joe Rogan. He fundamentally misunderstands comedic instincts, soapboxes about how he's a victim, and somehow still shapes the narrative via pure R-wordation. He controls reality. Now, I don't know if it's a joke or not, so we'll see. But I did see this clip.
War.
You'd think we'd have more presidents. The Catholics.
Yeah, they only had one.
Biden,
Right?
too.
Oh, Biden's Catholic.
We got Biden.
Allegedly.
True. We only got one. They got
Allegedly. Yeah, Biden's not a real Catholic.
got
dude.
shot, and then Biden was doing auto sign. Give us a good one.
Yeah. You got anybody in mind?
Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes? He could probably win in a few years.
Hold on, let's talk.
Listen, he couldn't have existed before.
Hitler can win
right?
in a few
10,
years.
20 years ago, couldn't have existed. Now, super popular. What's 20 years from now look like? Maybe someone like that can win.
Well, we'll see.
Shame for that, bro. He's
maybe
like
Hitler's gonna
clearly
win the next
laughing.
election.
He's like, yeah, Nick Fuentes, wouldn't that be crazy? And Joe's like, actually, yeah. Like, what do you mean? Shane Gillis brings it up as like, how funny would that be? And then Joe's like, no, actually, that's good. That's actually a good idea. We should do that.
I got to pee so bad. We got to wrap this up anyway.
I'm down.
4:18.
We got that one at the buzzer.
Yeah. Well, listen, I will say this about it. It's fascinating
I
to
like that instead of wrapping it up, he's like, let me talk about it a little bit further, just so people do not mistake my fascination with Nick Fuentes as, me going along with what Shane presented as like a possible threat to American democracy. Let me explain to you how I mean it.
There's like a whole group of people that feel very unrepresented in the world.
Yeah, fascists,
And especially
and
like
Nazis.
young men. And here you got this
Yeah,
young guy
fascist
with
young
a
men
very
and
high
fascist
verbal
Nazis.
IQ. And he also does a lot of posting, a lot of talking, a lot of trolling, says women shouldn't be allowed to vote, says wild and that Piers Morgan thing is like, bro, that was like an expert
Let me pause
sparring.
this. I feel like fascism in this case, like it appeals to like a certain type of person, and I feel like the way it develops, like like it's very repugnant to like average people. Like obviously, like the Groyper movement, which is like very anti-women, anti-everything. Honestly, anti-Mexican too, which is Nick Fuentes is a Mexican, which is kind of contradictory.
It's like, bro, that was like an expert sparring with someone who thought they were an expert.
It's kind of just weird to me that like right-wing people, liberals, all the like they'll just like use the shifting like political climate that just becomes even more extreme. The more extreme it gets, to like the more like the more like it should be validated or whatever. That like is like a normal part of society, that like a movement is building up in the Republican Party that like basically, I mean, it's more fringe because like it's based on nothing, no principles. They don't have a lot of organizing capacity, at least not yet. But it's weird that like the more extreme it gets, like the more it should be normalized, or like the more it's considered free speech or whatever. That's kind of crazy to me, and that's kind of like it's kind of how I feel like it would develop. The movement would develop in the first place, is that like people would feel like disconnected from the truth, whatever the truth is. which is, fascist ideology. I don't know.
Sure.
Like they're playing two totally
I
different
agree.
games.
And it's also the thing that people try to get Fuentes on is that he's still funny as
it's funny.
so that's where you're in a lot of trouble.
When he hits him, do you think you made jokes about the Holocaust? He goes, too soon? Like, dude. And you could see
He's wild.
You could see Piers going, oh,
Bro, when he was like, me mom died. I was like, holy shit.
bro, he got hit. He got hit with a miss.
Honestly, I don't even understand like this is at this point when I got to this point of the video, like I haven't seen past this point, but like when I got to this point, I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. Like, well, why are you laughing about like, fucking people getting thrown in ovens, people getting cremated, people getting experimented on, like plague getting induced into them, like families separated, families destroyed, people executed, children executed, mothers frozen to death, like. Why is that even funny in the first place? And then let's listen to Hassan's response.
So on that one.
Before people go, oh my God, how are they saying this? For the record, Nick Fuentes is not trolling when he says that. But you have to understand, most people don't have the same social investment that you do towards like being tolerant to marginalized groups. You need to understand this. You need to snap out of your bubble. It's the same with like people who make George Floyd jokes over and over again. I don't think that's funny at all. Okay. I don't think that's funny at all. And yet, according to some of the dumbest right wingers on the planet, it's all the laughs. Okay. It's the most funny thing that they've ever encountered. Bro, stop defending.
All right. Actually, you know what? That's actually perfect. We actually stopped right there. Bro, stop defending Shane. Come on. He's not defending Shane. He's basically saying, I haven't seen past this point, so I don't know what Son's going to say, but he's not defending him. He's basically saying that, like, it's a reality that the culture is shifted so much to where, like, fascist ideology is normalized in society, where not out of, like, people's, like, own, like, development. It's not out of their own development as fascists. Like, they don't see themselves as fascists, but they harbor the same sentiments that develop from a fascist society because they're being led to like these conclusions, or they're not developing like the appropriate like social awareness towards these issues and what they represent. Like people have different tolerances to what they represent based off of how they feel about certain things. Black people are going to feel a certain way about cops that is different than the way that white people are going to feel about cops. Like that's based off of like cultural, like, experiences, cultural experiences, like actual experiences, historical experiences, and context. Like, and the context here is that like there's a certain group of people that just don't care about minorities or whatever, or that they harbor some of the same sentiments towards minorities that fascists feel towards minorities, or in a very divisive way, like in a way that like I remember I was talking to a guy at the train station or whatever, and like I was looking for like job opportunities, and he was going on about how like the Mexicans are stealing all the jobs, or how they would never go for a black person or whatever. There's a black guy, by the way, but like there's like these sentiments that people feel towards minorities that is being pushed in the wrong direction, in my opinion, because it's not that it's obviously not that Mexicans are stealing jobs. They just want to work. It's obvious that the oligarchs are just not providing enough, or they're just favoring one group to undermine another. Like that's not Mexicans doing that. It's fucking oligarchs. But yeah, basically that sentiment of fascist ideology is basically just exists, and that there's people like this guy, this Ryan from PA, that like they see any like acknowledgement of like what's going on as defensive the people, but like he's basically saying that this culture already exists, so you probably should address it, or that it actually exists, so you probably should acknowledge it.
Shane already come on. There's no defense of Shane Gillis here at all. I'm simply explaining to you what is going on in the world, okay? What is going on in America? A big part of the reason why this is now considered another thing to laugh about is partially because the right wing totally dominated. The right wing totally dominated the whole like, oh, the left is being annoying woke scolds over and over and over again. They nonstop hammered that point over and over and over again, while they were also being annoying woke scolds themselves. But they were able to successfully make this like the left's self-identified movement. And ironically enough, a lot of people on the left did contribute to this because they were like, yeah, no, we are woke scolds actually. And a lot of people on the left also do present this as like their number one issue. Right wingers don't do that. They complain all the time, but then when called into question whether or not they're being woke scolds, they go, oh, how dare you? No, of course not. We're not woke scolds at all. We would never do that. Liberals don't do that. Rad libs, liberals, leftists, we love adopting that framing and adopting that identity. We don't even want to lie about it. At least the right wingers lie about it. They don't give a about
The culture that breeds from like right wing like fascist ideology is that like it labels anything that like is like taboo as anybody who defends these taboos, which is like defending like anti-fascism, defending anti-Nazism, they view that as woke. So you just label everything as woke, and that your base identifies that, or you base these cultural identities on what you're categorizing it as. And basically, you categorize everything that's just right wing, which is Nazism, fascism, Zionism, any ideology, and you basically say anybody who goes against this is woke. So it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm gonna keep going.
Hypocrisy. They lie about it all the time. Never made it seem as though I was in any way, shape, or form playing civility politics. My most famous moment that has been posterized in the last New York mayoral race was saying America deserved 9/11. The f are you talking about? For me, what matters a lot more is your worldview, your policies, what you think responsible governance looks like, how we improve people's lives.
I will say that does matter to a lot to like left wing ideology, but I think a lot. I think it matters a lot less to average people because like they're just dominated by like cultural dog whistles or whatever. Everything, anything anti-fascism, anything anti-Nazism, anything anti-American is woke or whatever. I guess the only way to get people to support it is through policy, which is what Hassan is saying. And that's how like Zoran Mamdani won his election, because he won on his policies. He won on popular support, mobilization, stuff like that. It's definitely proof that it's
never been a moment where I've been like, oh, wow, we just gotta really reconsider this. But you need to understand, it is a more consistent position on the right, partially for this reason. And a lot of right-wingers don't understand. The ones that like still want to go back to the old days of like, at least like leaning into anti-Semitic memes, but not having that affect America's unshakable relationship with Israel, want to basically put the toothpaste back in the tube. They want to do a version of like woke, where you can only be woke about Jewish people, but you can be the least woke about everybody else. It's not work. It's just not going to work at all.
Too soon. It was like, oh my God.
The thing is, I'll give you context, right? If Adam Friedland said that because as an anti-Zionist Jew, he went on Piers Morgan, and Adam Friedland was the one who said too soon to someone talking about the Holocaust, everyone would laugh. Everyone in this community would laugh. But because we know Nick Fuentes' background, and because when he says it, he actually means it, right? And he actually is doing this as a point of propaganda to expand the permission structure on what can and can't be said, especially with a more nefarious agenda to tie everything back to like some kind of Jewish control conspiracy. Come for Hassan. Please stop dying on the joke hill. You have to learn not to get upset with jokes. You are just making the left less probable to win next election. Wait, what? I'm saying that same thing. I'm saying that context is what matters. People's personal background is what matters. People's ideology is what matters. That's the point I'm making. The reason why when Nick Fuentes said,
I think that might be why he considers like Joe Rogan doing it to be significant, because Joe Rogan has like, historically like platformed, Holocaust deniers.
Like Hitler was going and giving big speeches at City Square in Berlin, going on and on and on about how we're going to kill the Jews. And the German people said, right on, like, let's go do it. That was like the speeches that are out there where he is talking about the Jewish question, like almost all of those are like internal Nazi party, like rally speeches, you know, they're not him. He had to be careful about that. Like in 1938, which is pretty far down the line when Kristallnacht happened, it was kind of a nationwide pogrom against the Jews in Germany that was.
Some of the worst people on earth, Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump himself, the fascist himself. I mean, so like Joe Rogan's context of doing this, like obviously when I mentioned that story of that train guy, like obviously there's context in that like people obviously do not have the same worldview as Nick Fuentes. Obviously, not all people who harbor fascist ideology have the same worldview. But the fact that it exists means that it's a divisive mechanism to like divide people. That's basically what I was trying to say. I think that's pretty consistent.
Is that even though he has good comedic timing, which is what they're simply talking about here, the reason why it's dangerous when he does that, the reason why it's dangerous to platform Nick Fuentes in general, and now it's a complete
because he actually
lost
means
cause, is because contextually he's doing that for a specific reason, and that reason is to expand the permission structure on, you know, cutting out Jews as non-white from the broader American understanding. But that's the point. And for Joe Rogan to go on and be like, yeah, this is actually pretty brave, pretty bold, pretty beautiful. I hate that. The reason why I don't appreciate
He's
Joe Rogan's
ambitious.
analysis
He's
here is
become
because
the
he's
next
taking
president.
it sincerely. Like Shane could have brought it up to be like, haha, isn't that crazy that a Nazi it could like run for president? I don't even know how that would work. Wouldn't that be bad? And then Joe's like, yeah, you know, he has great comedic timing, and I think he'd be really dangerous. It's basically just like another step in the direction of potentially having Nick Fuentes go on the Joe Rogan experience. Speaking of which, let's see. Joe Rogan, socially, I'm left on almost everything. If someone comes along to the left that is an objective, sensible person that's making sense on like immigration, foreign policy, then I'm still
Along from the left that is an objective, sensible person that's making sense of like immigration, foreign policy, then I'm still left.
Right.
I'm still the same
Yeah, me
person.
too.
I'm still
No,
because
he's not.
socially I'm left on
No,
almost
he's not.
everything. On
Like,
almost
he's
everything.
brain poison. Like
the you
he's
know the
completely
hard
brain poison.
right is to me just like the hard left. The crazy that are out there on the fringes, and they sort of define the left and define the right for everybody. Like you define the right by like white supremacists,
Yeah.
KKK. You define the left by Antifa. Like
Right.
Jesus Christ, most people are like right here.
Sure.
Most people are like, I just want rules and law and everybody to be kind and healthy and a prosperous society and no pollution. And
Yeah.
I feel like we could all work together and do a better job of all these different things.
But like Jordan Peterson says, who's like my favorite human in the world. I love him so much. But he was saying like it's really easy to identify and rebuke the far right. Like we're very good at
Right.
identifying it and going, I disavow or whatever the term is. We don't want that.
Yeah.
But then with the left, the very extreme left, we kind of celebrate it and we
he's probably I'll let him finish.
we post it and we brag about it and we go, look how good I am.
I think they thought we have thug.
So I think what they're saying is that they're saying that like the right wing and the left wing, the extremists, the extremes of the left and the right are like equally repugnant to society, which is technically true. It is true in that like people define. When people say the left, like when I say the left, I mean like Antifa, or when I say the right, I mean Nazism. I mean, not really. I mean, that's not obviously that's too simplistic to say the right wing is just fascism. Like that's just not true. I feel like they're underplaying like, you know, people's like radicalization, because like people are kind of like radicalized to these ideologies. Like right wing people do celebrate mass deportations, you know, secret police kidnappings and stuff like that, especially of minorities and whatnot. They love that. They celebrate it. They literally celebrate it every single day. I mean, you can go on any platform, you can go on any news network, and you can probably find some sentiment of or not any news network. that's kind of overbroad. You can go on, you know, Fox. You can go on CNN. You can find some people that are supporting the fascist policies. And Joe's basically saying like, why do we have to define the left and the right wing? as two extremes, basically. I mean, you don't have to define it that way, but it's just that some people do define the left and the right wing as that way because like that's kind of like what they believe in, is what their ideology is. Like if I'm a fascist and I just want secret police going around and black bagging minorities that I don't like, then obviously I'm going to, support like administrations like Trump. I'm gonna support the extreme policies that, that go along with it. And to a certain degree, like the establishment, like the culture around, these things, like people view it, support it in some way or another, based on the social context. But like they also do love they do love stability. Most people love stability. They don't like change that much, even if they are being robbed, even if they are being cheated in society. As it stands right now, most people don't want change. They want stability, which is why they gravitate towards more um normative systems of ideology like conservatism and liberalism, which are just conservative. They're both conservative ideologies that are meant to uphold like uh social stability, which is why like um I feel like most liberals and most conservatives just want stability. That's why they oppose like the extremes of both the left and the right. But
I
Yeah.
think that it's one of those things. And
I'm
again,
against
it's
the far left.
It's the bullies.
I love motherfuckers who just hit this like enlightened centrist route where it's like, one, where is the far left? Does the far left have a fraction of power? Two, what is the far left? Because if you were to say someone like myself represents the far left, right, as many do on the internet, what are the immediate tangible policy goals that I have that you disagree with? No more senseless military conquest all around the globe. No more imperial domination. Take the revenues that we've generated so far and spend it on Americans to rebuild our infrastructure, to have a government jobs guarantee, a federal jobs program, building unlimited social housing, free healthcare, free college education. Wow, the far left. How terrifying. America is one of the countries on the planet that is actually capable of doing this because we have all the money. And we are the country that stops others from engaging in this kind of.
and you know what? It's not even like they don't have the money. They literally have the money. Like they always say that like they don't have the money, but where the hell did they get fucking $100,000 salaries for fucking Gestapo agents? Where did they get that money from? Where'd they get that money from if they didn't have the fucking money? Like they obviously have the money, they still want to fucking use it.
Of endeavor. If you sincerely talk to a person of the far left variety and you dig into their positions, you dig into their immediate solutions to some of these problems, it becomes very stupid because on the far right, it's easy to identify the far right and actually admonish or disagree with the far right because the far right is running on making this a white nationalist country, which revolves around the eradication of non-white people. Whiteness as a concept is already like not very well defined. Is it based on skin color? Is it based on cultural attitudes? Is it based on religion? We don't know. I mean, it's currently being led by, a bunch of non-white people on
That's
ironically.
what I said.
So we don't even know fully what that would look like, but let's say it's just about like, purging the boundaries of the state from all the Hispanic population or whatever. Like, is that something you agree with? Is that something you identify as an issue personally? Do you agree with that? Why do you agree with that? What kind of problems are the Latino population on U.S. soil creating for Americans in general? What kind of problems is the black population in America creating in general? Are those problems related to the structural hurdles that they must overcome? The structural inequalities such as abject poverty, for example. Is that the reason? Is that the reason why there is crime potentially in these communities? And that is the main point of contention here. When you ask someone like myself, I'm very open about my worldview. I'm very open about what I want to do, what I want to accomplish. And that's perhaps the reason why a lot of these guys have a harder time identifying what the issue is with the far left. Because when people ask those questions and the far left answers those questions, all of a sudden they find themselves in agreement with the far left. These are the type of things that I don't think Joe Rogan would be against, right? So they have to create a bastardized version of what they think the far left actually is, okay? Oh, we have to trans every single person by force, or everyone has to be gay. Everyone has to be woke at gunpoint or something like that. That's it. They think the
That's kind of like why I didn't. That's kind of like why I kind of understand why some left wing like commentators like Hassan. I know Hassan doesn't do it, but when they consider their audience, some of them don't try to incorporate these like cultural signals like around, specific identity groups like trans people. Obviously, it's anti-Marxist, but it's in the in the context of a society where like they view these like as like um these if you hear these dog whistles, like they go off in their head and they're like, oh wow, let me kick in the gear, let me let me let me despise this person because they like trans people. Like I can understand why they don't like go after these cultural dog whistles. It makes more sense because obviously there's no way to get people on board if they're just encapsulated by their
far
own
left
personal
is
biases.
Kamala Harris, and they don't even know what Kamala Harris even stands for. So they just believe whatever others have invented is the Kamala Harris policy positions. The moment from my previous comment, Alex tweet, I found this reply to be even more clownish from that community. What is this? H3 fans love Nick Fuentes now. I thought these people are supposedly staunchly against anti-Semitism. I'm an H3 fan, but I enjoy seeing Fuentes' ridiculous takes. They like Nick Fuentes and call him funny. They also support Asmongold, who's been boosting Fuentes for years. They never cared about anti-Semitism. It's always a cynical ploy to defend the indefensible genocide in Gaza. Yeah, I know. These guys don't give a I know. As long as it's not someone that attacks them, it's very, very transactional. I don't think Nick Fuentes has ever talked
It's
about
also
Ethan
hard
Klein,
to
so he
tell
doesn't
how
give
many
a-
of these people
Asmongold
that have
does not
these
attack Ethan Klein, so Ethan Klein
ideological
doesn't give-
opinions
the moment that they do attack
actually
one another,
believe
he
in
would
them
care.
and actually
Much easier
don't.
to do this when you have no real investment in politics at all, and you just simply
Depends on
look
the
at it like
context,
a
of
reality
course.
TV
Like,
show, as many of
depends
these
on
guys
context.
do. They are also in a much more privileged position than their audiences, so they can actually shelter themselves from the immediate impacts when the political landscape changes for the worse. But their fans, who actually also advance the causes of their favorite content creators, cannot actually shelter themselves from the impact of changing political discourse. That is the major problem. But it's really interesting because like a lot of people will turn around and say, Hassan, you're rich. Hassan, you're this. Hassan, you're that. As they think that this is somehow a point of hypocrisy for the things that I advocate for. They say, I'm far too privileged. I don't give a shit. First of all, Asmongold, Ethan, also richer than I am, really. But like, what is the expectation here? That you want me to present my politics in a similar vein to them? Is that what it is? Like, because it seems like that's the only difference there is what I'm advocating for. So I guess you would be fine if I was just as wealthy, but then also didn't say that there is a better way out there to fix society. So yeah, that's where we're at with the
Piers
Nick Fuentes
Morgan thing.
Joe Rogan.
Oh, well, that was the video. That was a pretty good video, in my opinion. Yeah, the ideology, the hatred towards the far left is, uh, you want to solve society, or you think that society's problems can be solved free housing the people, uh, through like the government subsidized programs. If you believe in that, then you're an extreme. You're an extreme, and the average person just wants to pay. The average person wants to pay for stuff forever, and like there's no other alternative. There's no society that can lower, rent prices, that can lower uh uh housing, or not rent, housing, not sorry, university prices, and there's nothing. There's no alternative system to society. That's kind of like what most liberals and conservatives present as the solution, is that there's no alternative to society. Just society's the way it is. We can only improve it in the ways that we've already been trying to improve it, which obviously leads to like radicalization of, Nick Fuentes style radicalization, obviously. Far left at size radicalization that like, obviously they're different. Far left is, socialized, socialized medicine, socialized hospitals, jobs guarantees, free education for, all people, So that no students are paying for food at schools and all that stuff. Like, there's like certain policy goals that like the far left has that like the far right obviously does not have, but for some reason more moderate people try to portray it that way. Obviously Joe Rogan has an interest because like he's like he is a right-wing commentator. He platforms Holocaust deniers and all that stuff. But yeah, pretty good video. I think it was pretty encapsulating how like the political landscape has changed and how it actually is how people are not really acknowledging the change in society as it stands. Thank you very much.